Hi, my name is Karen Holmes. I'm the founder and director of the World Peace Organization for the One World Government. Today, I want to talk about what happened yesterday at the state capitol when insurgents interrupted the Electoral College votes from being cast for Joe Biden. I wanted to explain to you a little bit about this and about how it compares to the COVID-19 pandemic. To give you just a little bit of an understanding, the physiological aspects of a virus and how it attacks the body is similar to what's happening outside in the world, in the person's life. For example, with Ebola virus, somebody in Africa equated people and how chimpanzees fight, how they hunt monkeys. Okay, so the people who were being attacked felt like they were like monkeys, that if they stood up and faced the chimpanzees, a pack of chimpanzees as it attacked them and overran them, they would end up being bloody. Well, the same thing, which is what happens with how the body reacts to the same kind of attack. So what was happening on one side was with the animals and the chimpanzees, and on the other side it was the genocide and the janjaweed. You might have heard that, the devils on horseback. So yesterday we had, you could consider what happened in the Capitol a cytokine storm and let's say a super spreader event. But it was more than that. It took the idea of a super spreader event and turned it into a cytokine storm. So what now, if you are watching any of the reports from the medical doctors, they say that the human body, the patients who are in the hospital, they go in there having a hard time breathing. That means they were having a hard time getting people to work with them. And then what's happening is when the body goes into the cytokine storm, that means the immunity is down, and basically it's like everything turns into chaos. Well, isn't that kind of what happened yesterday? We're starting to recognize the ramifications of all of the things that happened yesterday with, at first it was just, well, was it another protest or what was happening? It was a cytokine storm. It was like an attack, similar to what causes people to die. And in fact, several people, I know one woman did, and then I heard there were 3 other people who died as a result of that attack too. They didn't feel they could get their life. So the trick of it is, so with COVID-19, that same kind of thing is, we are now in a situation where, on a parallel basis, looking at the parallels, with Congress and what's happening in our government, there's still, 70 million people, 73 million people who voted for Donald Trump. Not all of them are going to rise up and become an army or whatever. But there are a lot of people who basically are very unhappy that he didn't win the election. Okay? So the potential there is for this big schism in our country to actually get worse. With Joe Biden in there, it's going to take a while. And what I wanted to talk about today is what is going to unravel the cytokine storm. It's not going to be Joe Biden, and it's not going to be Kamala Harris becoming elected and rational thought coming back or whatever. It's going to be the next step, and that is what happens, okay, when people are dying and the doctor can't help them anymore. There are no vaccines. In fact, the vaccines don't necessarily help certain strains, and there's this new strain coming out that it seems to be worse. And as I said in a previous video, the strains come about because of the different interpretation of the word snake. So we saw Donald Trump yesterday becoming a snake, but a snake does not just sit there and fight you. A snake goes around and weaves and throws loops and all this kind of thing. And so we can expect things to happen for a long time, an attack. But what happens is people pray. When you reach the point where you think you're going to die and the doctors can't help you anymore, you've turned your life over to the doctors, you're on a ventilator, that's the point where you pray, even if you don't necessarily have any formal religion. That's when you kind of get down on your knees, and that's when the real religion comes out. Okay, so what happens now? And I'm going to talk about the idea, they've talked about Republican in name only, but how about Christian in name only? What happens if you are a Christian in name only and you don't recognize this idea? And let's say you've gone to church and you don't understand the principles. So right now I wanted to step back and I wanted to look at how to understand the truth of this. Where is the truth? And that is, now what's going to happen is with the cytokine storm coming and the battles, the possible army coming up in different places, we're looking at this, but we're also looking at the effects of the Iraq War and what happened with the genocide there. When there are two power games that are based on weaving an illusion, and one of them is genocide and the other one is kind of like slavery, but it's more kind of like a greed idea. Okay, so it's like a combination of slavery, greed. It's act of revenge. Okay, now I wanted to step back and I wanted to say what counters all of these cytokine storms is what would happen if you were in the hospital and you're on a ventilator, and there's so many people who understand this now, and the doctors can't help you anymore. In fact, there's some places where if you are really bad, they won't even take you. The medical establishment, the structure is overwhelmed, so they won't even put you in the ambulance anymore. They'll just let you die at home. Okay, so that's the point where you get religion. And what happens now is we're going to start to peel off the idea of religion and what it is that about religion that allows God to come and help you. Okay, so what would happen if, this is something that always intrigued me because I grew up in an era where I watched a lot of World War II movies when I was a kid. They were John Wayne type movies, and in the early 50s and 60s it had been after the war, and it was, people were pretty, the troops had come home and it was happy and people were building their lives, and it was kind of glorifying the war again. This was before Vietnam, so war was still kind of glorious at that time. But what happened was, I always thought it was kind of ridiculous to have both sides praying before a battle that that God would protect them, that God would watch over them and things like that. So it seemed like it seemed like, why would God protect both sides? It wasn't always a very logical thinker at that time. So think about that for a minute. So we are looking at the idea of religion and patriotism, and we're looking at how God comes in and rescues people who are facing their end-of-life crisis. My book, I did a book with Archangel Michael. I channeled a book with him called A Little Angel Told Me, and it's about how an angel comes. The book is designed to help you pass it on. Somebody's in crisis, and you pass it on to that person, and you say, this an angel. He comes because he's an angel, and you've been deputized to send it on to be the person who's going to be the angel and to bring the angel in. Okay, when the person is in crisis. Okay, so if with the cytokine storm and the ambulance is not taking you into the hospital because they're going to let you die at home, that's when you get religion. Okay. So, but stepping back from that, what is it that makes it possible for God to actually help somebody? I'm going to deputize you today. Let's say that the thing that God stands on, the only thing we really can trust about God, because, is God the Christian God? Is God the Muslim God? Is God, who is God? And is God old man on the throne idea and all these things? It's, what is the truth about God? God has been obfuscated too. So the only thing you can know at any time like this, we live in an illusion. The only thing that you can know for the truth is universal law. Do unto others as you would have them do unto you. Okay, so that is how it works. But universal law stands on 7 principles: equality, liberty, freedom, compassion, abundance, capacity, and tolerance. Okay, so let's say this. How do you know the truth about something? How can somebody be so sure about something that they overcome a cytokine storm? How can you walk away from a cytokine storm when your whole body, when you have no defenses, when there's nothing you can do and you're backed into the corner and there's nothing you can do? That is how a cytokine storm functions. So what is your security? And that is to know that God's law is still in existence, because even God has to stand on the principles of universal law. That takes equality. So you're looking at that and you can say, what would Jesus do? People say that. What would Jesus do? Or what would Muhammad do? Or whatever. What is it that an angel would say to you? The angel would say, don't be afraid. Everything is okay. Everything is in perfect order. You just don't understand it yet. You don't see how this can be solved. This is a problem that doesn't seem to have a solution, but there's a solution. You just don't know it yet. You've turned your life over to somebody who can't help you. You've turned your life over to a doctor, and the doctor can't help you through a cytokine storm. The only thing that can help you is understanding that everything is in perfect order. Everything happens for a reason, and you just don't know what it is yet. And so, can you live one more minute? Can you live one more day? Can you understand that it's there waiting for you, and God has a better life ahead of you, and you don't have to really die to get it, because angels do come. So that's where we are now. We're going to start to look at universal law as the solution to this problem. And in fact, I wrote a letter to the Supreme Court, and I explained to them about universal law, that there's 3 levels of the universe. There's the principles, the power, and the project. In science, it is the potential, the drive, and the plan. Okay, in a family, it's father, mother, and son. Everything you look at, how about baseball? It's the rules. It's the application of the rules, and then it's the game that's played on a certain day. Is it the application of the rules? Okay, so let's say there's baseball that is played by the major leagues in the United States, and then there's the Japanese version of it, and then let's say there's the little league version of it, and then there's t-ball for the little kids, and they're all playing baseball, but it's got a different application of it. And then there's the game that's on a certain day, and the people who are experts know what happened in the World Series in 1964 or whatever it was. They know when Hank Aaron or Mickey Mantle or Lou Gehrig did their Babe Ruth did their broke the records. They know that because that's something that they understand. Okay, the average person who doesn't follow it doesn't know any of that stuff, but that's how it is. It's the same on every level. In our legal system, it's universal law because we're all citizens of the universe. And then universal law, the application of that is our Constitution in the United States. Well, there's constitutions all over the place. There's monarchies and all the different applications of it. There's dictatorships, there's dictators, dictaduras, and dictablandas. So you can have a beneficial dictator or a brutal one that takes away people's rights. So we get our rights, our unalienable rights, from our Creator. So let's say that if you don't need an angel really to come and help you overcome that, because you can just know the facts, you can know the truth, and extrapolate a lot out from that, a lot from the circumstances, so that you can see your way through to a sense of understanding, and then overcoming the effects that you know that, let's say, God is on your side because universal law is on your side. If you're doing what's in everyone's best interest, then you're solving your problems. You're coming out of your corner. That's how you solve the problems. Now, an example of this I'm going to use is the Iraq War. I'm going to go back to that because in a way it was very similar. There was a president who basically told a lie. People are going to disagree with me, but he told the grand lie. He wove an illusion that there were weapons of mass destruction and the intent to use them. And so we had been going along saying, our government had gone along and saying, well, we toppled dictators, this is something we've done, regime change, you've heard that before. And he said that when there were no weapons of mass destruction, it put us into the abyss. We lost our power base. We collapsed our power base. Now, sometimes we seemed like we had a great deal of power, but that's when the schism hit. But now, to get out of our crisis, we have to stand on the principles again, and we have to do what's in everyone's best interest. So now, what we're going to see here is, so let's say, to get our power back, we have to stand on universal law, and we have to give to everybody their unalienable rights. When we took them away from the Iraqi people, we lost our unalienable rights. To get them back, we have to give them to everybody else. So there we go. We turn universal law from facing the backlashes of it. What you do to somebody else will be done to you. We lost our power base. It collapsed our power base. By toppling that Saddam Hussein, that leader, our leader, is being toppled. We are facing Russian interference in our elections. We're facing, and this is all part of this whole much bigger picture. We're facing, let's say, Russian interference, and we've become a country like Ukraine. We've got a problem. We've got the same problem that those people have. Now, to get back our power. So let's say the Ukrainians are being attacked on their eastern side by Russians, and they're infiltrating and they're fighting. They've been fighting this war for a long time. How do we fight? If they are fighting the war, and like a patient in a COVID-19, and they're being flummoxed by Russians coming in and shooting them, going through this big illusion attack, a cytokine storm. Okay, how do we defend ourselves from a cytokine storm that is happening on the East Coast now? Okay, so we're looking at this idea about how to defend yourself. When you're backed into the corner, you do what's in everyone's best interest. You can step off, get off. You can turn COVID-19 around in a cytokine storm by understanding your security is God. Because what somebody does to you will be done to them. It happens that way. And you are going to watch that as all of this stuff happens, Donald Trump will probably be weaving his illusion, and like a snake I don't like to compare him to a snake. He's just somebody who's playing a power game. But he's going to be, the power game that he plays is based on weaving an illusion. So the more he gets backed into a corner, the more illusion he's going to be weaving. Then what we do is we start to unravel the illusion by understanding that you may not understand what he's saying. You may not understand the background of it, but you know that universal law, that you cannot get your life by weaving an illusion. Okay. If this is an act of revenge, what happens is the revenge starts to, let's say George Herbert Walker Bush in the Gulf War brought in George W. Bush, that brought in the countries, the coalition countries that were in it for the greed. George W. Bush, Herbert Walker Bush, played the game of pride, and that was the game that started the war, the Gulf War. Then George W. Bush judged him. That turned it into a genocide. Then that brought in the coalition countries that were in it for the greed. That brought in the countries that were in it to weave the illusion, the snake idea of weaving the illusion, the sociopaths, the narcissists, the sociopaths that are based on weaving an illusion. And then that brought in the countries that denied the other people a voice. The same thing's happening with racism and all the other things where denying people a voice. You can pretty much unravel that idea. So when George Herbert Walker Bush died, that unraveled the people who are denying him a voice. ISIS, there's sleeper cells in probably one of the reasons that Donald Trump was keeping the Muslims out is because he was afraid of sleeper cells, but they had been already in here for years, according to that, and that was not going to solve any problems. But the idea is this, is that if our country is standing on the principles of universal law, Muslim sleeper cells are not ever going to be able to stand up and protest. If we are doing what's in everyone's best interest, they can't stop that. They can't say, well, we have the right to rise up and protest, but also what are you protesting exactly? Universal law? Well, you're subject to universal law too. Every atom in the universe is subject to universal law, so that doesn't work. So then what happens is that unravels the illusion. Everybody has a right. It's an unalienable right to have a voice in their government. That unravels the illusion that the psychopaths and the sociopaths and the narcissists are weaving. And when they go down, they're grabbing, they don't have anything. They're doing it because they don't have anything. Let's say the devil, we dragging people backwards in their progress. They don't have anything. Donald Trump really doesn't have anything. He says, I'm the most powerful man on the planet. I'm rich, respect me, do all these things. I'm capable of doing things. I'm going to fire you. I'm going to do these things. And people who don't understand look at him and say, he is really great. He's going to make us great again. But the root cause, if you understand where greatness comes, it's our God that's great. It's the principles that we stand on that's great. That makes our country great. It pegs us, universal law of do unto others, pegs us on a very high level. Okay, when we play our power games, that doesn't work very well. Okay, so anyway, that's pretty much, if you want to read my letter to the Supreme Court, it's on our website in the reference section. I introduced it back in, I think, November 2017. So basically, I introduced it into the U.S. legal system and then into various court cases and things like that. But watch, what'll happen is it's going to start to separate out the people who are Christians in name only, and basically the people who are standing on the principles. The spiritual people, the people who recognize that, and the people say, I'm a Christian, so therefore I have the right to tell you what to do and wage war on you. And they don't. So that's separating that group of people out now. Watch and see what happens. If you end up with COVID-19, it's important for you to just realize that you don't have to be sick. God never said you had to be sick. If you have see snakes, just understand that there are people playing power games, and everybody plays power games. Okay, The games are bad, not the people. Okay? So that's all I wanted to talk about today. I just wanted to make this kind of short. So check out my letter to the Supreme Court on the website, and be sure to like, share, and subscribe, because this is important. This is information that needs to be shared with other people. Thanks for stopping by and listening.